Good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Williams.
I'm Savannah Guthrie.
And I'm Perch Perkins. You're watching Channel 21's World Scope Report.
Our top story tonight is poverty. Since the 2010 census, many people have seen that despite the development in some countries, over 3 billion people live below or at the poverty line at less than $2 a day.
To put in simpler terms, almost half the world cannot afford a sandwich from their local Panera Bread.
Too soon. And despite the increase in wealth in our own country, many developing countries worldwide are losing wealth from being exploited by the developed world. The result? Millions of children, women, and men alike are finding themselves in newfound poverty around the world each day.
A quick way to find a country's wealth is by finding their GDP, and then their GDP per capita, or the average income per person in the country during the average fiscal year. Take Bill Gates, valued at around $79.3 billion for 2015.
Now take the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a Central African country. The DRC's GDP is valued at about $55.731 billion, yet its GDP per capita is only $702.78. That averages to only $1.93 a day, 7 cents below the $2 poverty line. While it's simple to say that Bill Gates is wealthier than the entire population of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it also shows the incredible income disparity, or the gap between the rich and the poor.
To illustrate the poverty that follows from this lack of income in less developed countries, let's send it over to our live reporter, Courtney Keeler, with her statistical analysis on African poverty. Thank you, Courtney. Now, a quick word from our sponsors.
It's my money and I need it now!
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 It's my money. And I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now!
Es mi dinero y lo necesito ahora.
Es ist mein Geld und ich brauche es jetzt!
It's your money. Use it when you need it. Welcome back. Continuing our broadcast, we just learned about Africa and how poverty categorizes the daily life of the average person in most of its nations. However, poverty does not exist solely in developing countries like those of sub-Saharan Africa. So, what are the factors that characterize global poverty?
The biggest factor is a country's GDP. The 41 poorest countries that total GDP is less than the wealth of the world's 7 richest countries. When a country's GDP per capita is low, people are not making money on a large enough scale to buy the things that they need, and rather must use the little money that they make to support a large family. Eventually, this small wealth collapses, and entire families are forced into homelessness and absolute poverty worldwide.
The second factor is access to jobs. To attain a higher paying job, certain qualifications are needed. For example, if a person wanted to become a doctor in the United States, they would need 12 years of a post-high school education, hands-on experience in a hospital setting, and advanced knowledge on medical practices.
But what if that job applicant couldn't read or even sign his or her name? According to Global Issues, nearly 1 billion people entered the 21st century without these 2 basic skills. This only further hurts the chances of a person living below or near the poverty line to gain a higher paying job, and the lack of access to universal education in developing countries limits the chances of these nearly 1 billion people to gain these 2 crucial skills.
Of course, a lack of education is not to be blamed on the impoverished people of the world. According to the same source, less than 1% of what the world spent annually on weapons was needed to universalize education worldwide. Yet this never happened. We'll talk more about what's being done to bring people out of poverty later in the broadcast.
But what about the children? Adults, but especially children, live in poverty due to a lack of basic needs that us here in the United States take for granted. These quick facts gathered by our research team have been verified and may surprise you. For the 1.9 billion children from the developing world, 1 in 3 live without access to adequate shelter, 1 in 5 lack access to safe water, and 1 in 7 lack access to health services. Additionally, 2.2 million children die each year because they are not immunized. To understand just how terrible these statistics are, we want to let the viewers know that a child by this collection's definition is defined as any person ages 5 and under.
In our next segment, you will see Tommy Jackson as he breaks down poverty in Asia. Asia, unlike much of Africa, is highly industrialized and is an active participant in international trade, showing signs of economic development in countries like Japan, China, and India. So Tommy, What is different about Asian poverty, and why is holding back the entire continent? Thanks so much, Tommy. While we set up for our next analysis, we are going to take a short commercial break.
If you can, we can. Michael and Son.
Is y'all tree too small?
We fixed it. Michael and Sons.
Doo doo doo.
The table don't work.
We fixed it. Michael and Son.
Doo-doo-doo. And we're back. Thanks so much for joining us on tonight's World Scope Report. In our next installment, we will generalize world poverty in other areas of the world, specifically poverty in the Caribbean and Latin America. If you've been paying attention, you should note that despite us moving to more developed nations, poverty is still existent.
We began with Africa, where its geographic, political, and economic development strongly hinders progress. We then moved to Asia, where despite progress is happening in the more developed countries of Japan and China, the rest of Southeast Asia is being held back in the countryside. Now we move to Latin America and the Caribbean, with its own unique form of poverty. Rather than sending out a news reporter to Latin America, we would like to show you a brief interview with Mrs. Erin Wiley. Mrs. Wiley traveled to Haiti for the past 2 years, and she is here to explain the issues with Haitian poverty and her unique view on it.
Thanks so much, news team. I'm here with Mrs. Erin Wiley, who's traveled to Haiti for the past 2 years. May I call you Mom?
No.
That was awkward. Alright, well let's just dive right into it then. So Mrs. Wiley, you've traveled to Haiti for the past 2 years. Would you mind explaining why you went to Haiti?
A quote that means a lot to me is, I can't even credit anyone with it because I'm not sure, maybe a Bible quote. To whom much is given, much is expected. I feel very fortunate in my life, and I feel like it's my responsibility as a fortunate person with resources to give back to those who don't. And I enjoy it. So that was my reason for going.
So, when you got to Haiti, how did your group help in terms of just anything? You can speak religiously or you can speak outside of it.
So when we went, we had worked with a group called Partners in Development. We had planned to do a vacation Bible school for 150 kids. When we arrived, we found out that we would actually be having 150 kids every day, different kids, so a total of 750 children. So we kind of panicked a little bit, but you have to be very, very flexible there. So we were, and what we did was we had kind of a get-together group. The kids come in the morning. We sing with them, talk to them, and then we break them down into groups where they could play. One group plays, one group does arts and crafts, that's my group, and another group does Bible study. So then we are able to feed them all lunch. It's really nice to be able to feed the kids. Should I go more into that now?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so a lot of these children, when we were first, our first two groups of children, one of them was from Cité Soleil. They actually came to us at our compound where we were just outside of Port-au-Prince. And when we asked why we couldn't go to them like we were going to do for the rest of the week, we were told, oh no, you will be stabbed, you will be raped there. Just very matter of fact. So that just kind of took us back. We were kind of shocked by that because to see the children getting off the bus, some of these kids are 2 years old. And Cité Soleil is the largest slum in the Western Hemisphere. It's very, very dangerous. And it's very, very poor. Many children don't have clothes. It's very, very, very common to see to go through towns and see children without clothes on. But these children don't have clothes. They don't have a place to sleep. As a matter of fact, they sleep in shifts often, where during part of the day people will be outside because it's not their turn to sleep. And even if it's, the middle of the day, it's somebody's turn to sleep and they need to be inside sleeping because they don't have the space to sleep. It's not safe there. So a lot of times the kids will come and just feel safe and have some peace, and they'll be able to sleep or snuggle up or just be loved or get something to eat, which is really important, that we get to feed all those kids.
And I think that's important.
Well, it's funny because I have a little girl that I sponsor. She's not little, she's 14. Her name is Wedlin.
And that's actually one of our questions. Would you mind explaining the process or the program that you go through to help with that?
So the program I go through is Partners in Development. I give $30 a month because Woodland is an emergency family. My $30 monthly goes to feed the entire family, and I offered to pay more so that she could go to school. She just started school in December for the first time in her life. School costs money in Haiti, and many families do not have the money to pay for it. There's no governmental program that allows for children to go to school. You have to be able to afford school. So when I went to visit Woodland and her family, her cousins were scared to death of me. They'd never seen a white person before, and I guess it would be scary to, if some of you have smaller brothers and sisters, to have someone just completely blue, like an avatar, come into the house. It would probably be scary for them. So her cousins were very, very scared of me. They were very small. So I felt kind of like a monster because they'd never seen a white person before. So there's not very many white people in Haiti at all.
So would you say that through the child sponsorship program, Woodland was able to be fed and eventually
Yes.
educated?
Yes, Woodland's parents both died, one tuberculosis and one AIDS, and she now lives with her aunt. Her aunt is taking responsibility for her. Her aunt has 4 children of her own. Woodland is treated very poorly by her aunt. Woodland is what's called a rest-evict child, where she's taken in by another family member and treated as pretty much a slave to that family. Woodland, one of the reasons she doesn't go to school is because she's very busy during the day. She has to clean their small area. She has to go and get water every day, which is miles away. So she's expected to take care of her cousins who are much smaller than her, and she's treated very poorly by her aunt. But that is her only place to live right now. So unfortunately, I think since Woodland is the cause for some money coming into the household, she's been treated a little bit better, but she still is treated very poorly.
So, our viewers are familiar with 5 other traps besides poverty, and that's war, climate, water, food, and population. Are you able to connect those in any way back to Haiti and how poverty stems from these?
Haiti was born a poor country. Haiti is the first all-black republic, and the first that was born of a successful slave rebellion. I believe it's the only successful slave rebellion. So the people of Haiti take quite a bit of pride in that, and if you were to go there now, you would think that they just this just happened within the last 10 years, not 200 years ago. So they're very, very proud of that, and I think that war was the cause of that. Maybe not war in the true sense of the word, but rebellion, and that is huge in Haiti's context, where if the people of Haiti do not like something that's going on in the government, they protest. If they think that they're not being treated fairly, they protest. And as someone who's traveled to Haiti, and I'm going on my third time in August, I get messages from the State Department for travelers who travel to Haiti that this is not a good time because of frequent protests or dangerous protests. So they're known for that, and they take pride in it. And it sounds maybe not not a great thing, but it is a great thing because they're free to do that for the most part. They do suffer the consequences, which would not stand in the United States. They're killed. There's been a lot of governmental corruption. So anyway, climate is difficult there. It's a very hot tropical climate. There's a rainy season between February and May where it pours down, and other than that, there's not much rain throughout the rest of the year. It's a very, very, very hot, brutally hot climate. I pretty much start sweating before the airplane lands, and I don't stop until I get back to Miami. There's no air conditioning. There's very few fans. It's hot. It's hot, but that is all relative because when you're used to hot weather, you get used to it. So on a day when it's a chilly 90 degrees, they'll have sweaters on sometimes because they're chilly because it's 90. So that's all relative. What else? Water. Water is, what was the statistic?
58%.
58% of Haitians have access to clean water. When the children come to us, many times they'll have a bag, about maybe this big, bag full of water.
Size of your textbook.
No, way smaller than that. Maybe half that size, full of water, and that's their water for the day. So they bite off the corner and they just kind of sip out of the bag. There's no even water bottles. Whoops. Anyway, so there is no water. It's very upsetting, and they need to walk very far to get to water. There's no running water. The water that is there is brackish. It's tainted. People bathe. There are animals. All kinds of things happen in the water that the people drink there. It's not good, and that leads to issues such as cholera, which would be unheard of having in the United States. As recently as a couple of years ago, there was a cholera outbreak in Haiti. One thing I would like to mention about water is that when I was recently in Aruba, Aruba has an amazing water filtration process that I really hope could be duplicated in Haiti, where they desalinize the ocean water for drinking purposes. It would create it would be absolutely wonderful for the Haitian people to have a resource like that where they could drink water safely without boiling it, without worrying about germs and cholera. So that would be something I would really love to see. But Haitian people need to develop public sanitation, places to put trash, and that sort of thing as well. Food.
Or rather food production, not so much the consumption of food.
Food production is difficult because Haiti is probably one of the worst global examples of slash and burn agriculture. When the average Haitian can make $1 a day, but they can get $30 for a bag, not even a large bag, but a bag of charcoal, that's what they're going to do. So if they have a tree, if they're near a tree, they're going to burn that. They're going to use the wood for fuel, and they're going to sell the charcoal at the market if they can make money from it. So because there are so many poor people there, and because the people have so very few resources and so little training, they will go to cut down their resources. Haiti has 3% of its original forest, and the deforestation rate is 10% every 5 years. So when you look at Haiti as the western half of Hispaniola, and you look at the Dominican Republic, which is the eastern half, the difference is night and day because of the deforestation, because of slash and burn agriculture, because of so many reasons, but mostly because of just absolute
Abuse
of their own resources, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Not a great word, but we get the gist of it.
Yeah.
So, for those viewers who are unclear, if this table was going to be used for slash and burn agriculture, we would have this area. It would be full of things we can't use. We would burn it. We would get the resources that we can burn, such as the charcoal from it. We would sell it. And then what we can't, for example, those ashes, they would be used as nutrients to plant new things. And then that area would again be reburned after the nutrients are depleted. So you're pretty much burning a lot of stuff.
But they don't. They're not good at replenishing.
Not to cut you off, but we're running short on time. If you'd like to discuss population and how maybe that affects poverty.
After the 2010 earthquake, the population of Port-au-Prince, Haiti's capital city, doubled. Most of the population is in agricultural areas or in the rural areas, but the population in Port-au-Prince doubled, and which is why you saw people living in tents, and there are still people living in tent cities, and Cité Soleil is an example of that. The tent cities, like you saw on the news just after the earthquake in Haiti, are not still there for the most part, so there's definitely been improvement, but I would say that is difficult for the economy to have such a shift in population to its center all at one time.
So I realize that you're not an expert on Haiti, but you do have a good knowledge of it. So I would like to ask, what do you think will be the future of Haiti? Do you think it's going to remain in poverty for some while, or do you think it's on its way up?
I think that that's a difficult thing to say because I do have hope for Haiti. The 5 years now after the earthquake, the population and the economy is the exact mirror of what it was before the earthquake. I don't think that's a great thing, but I think that's maybe a positive thing that so much has happened in so little time. I think that if the government became more transparent, a little less corrupt, a little bit more honest, there was a little bit more trust in the government, that could majorly help Haiti. And I think that coordination of NGOs or non-government agencies or organizations, if there was better coordination from them, because there are a lot of people in the world who want to do good and want to help Haiti, want to help the people of Haiti, want to help the children of Haiti. So I think that a coordination of NGO efforts would be good. I also think that the current president, Martelly, had a great program, and it's not been a complete success, but I think that it shows signs of progress because he has started some schools for children that the government will be paying for, which is a really big deal because without education, you've got nothing. So I feel like the more children that can be educated, the more Haiti will progress. There's a lot that can be done.
Right, well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to send it back to you all live in the news crew. But thank you again, Mrs. Wiley, for your time.
While the news team sets up for their final statistical analysis, we are going to have a quick word from our sponsors. Closed captionings and other considerations for World Scope Report provided by this, and this.
And we're back. Thanks so much for joining us on tonight's WorldScope Report. Our final statistical analysis will be performed by Aiden. Our final topic is domestic poverty, or poverty that occurs in the United States. Despite being one of the world's most advanced countries and having the world's highest GDP per capita at $45,863.02, poverty is still existent in many parts of the country, especially in the cities.
Aiden, can you tell us what characterizes poverty in the United States and what distinguishes it from world poverty?
So, we've discussed the bad and the ugly. Where's the good? Many organizations today are working together to end world poverty. On a global scale, the United Nations has developed a plan called the Millennium Development Goals. There are 8 goals, one of which includes cutting the population of those in poverty by 2015 in half by offering financial assistance. Another term, microloans, are beginning to be offered in less developed countries. An example of a microloan would be providing an impoverished family with 30 chickens but laying out a strict agreement. The family could only eat 4 chickens and the rest would have to be sold to make a profit. Microloans are increasing in Africa, Southeast Asia, and even parts of Haiti.
Another foundation is the Comic Relief Organization. Red Nose Day is a comic relief event that occurs every other year that uses laughter and comedy to raise money to fund projects in the UK and Africa. Red Nose Day occurred on March 13th this year and has raised over $1.5 billion to support the fight against global poverty since it was founded in 1985. Many celebrities, including Sam Smith, John Legend, and One Direction, joined the fight against poverty with comic relief. The 3-hour TV program in the UK includes stand-up comedy, skits, music, and the famous Dermot's Day of Dance, where Dermot O'Leary dances for 24 hours.
But how can you help? Local church groups fund projects throughout the nation to support our global partners. The Emory United Methodist Church, or the church that Mrs. Wiley goes through to get to Haiti, sponsors a program called Partners in Development. Partners in Development strives to provide children with the adequate amount of food and health assistance. More advanced programs within Partners in Development, or PID for short, even go to Latin American countries and Haiti and build homes and provide education to collective families.
Other foundations, such as Habitat for Humanity International, travel to more developed countries, but also less developed countries worldwide to build homes and provide some financial assistance to the people. Habitat for Humanity steps in usually after a natural disaster. As we speak, Habitat for Humanity is currently working in Nepal to rebuild the homes destroyed by the Nepalese earthquake and avalanche.
Students can start going on international relief trips beginning at age 16. Habitat for Humanity accepts people beginning at age 18 to travel internationally, but as young as 15 to travel within the country. It helps people more than you could ever imagine, builds great leadership skills, and of course, looks great on a college application.
Finally, domestic poverty is still poverty. Volunteer your time at local homeless shelters or soup kitchens. They provide impoverished people with full stomachs and let them know that people do care about them. If you can spare some time, can you spare some change? Even $5 given to a homeless person can supply them with a simple food such as a sandwich.
From Panera Bread.
Still too soon. Can keep them energized throughout the entire day.
Well, that's all the time we have for our broadcast, and that concludes it for today.
For Channel 21's WorldScope Report, I'm Chris Perkins.
I'm Savannah Guthrie.
And I'm Brian Williams. Good night.
That's so funny!